This video will be a look at the organelles within a eukaryotic cell. An organelle is a specialized subunit within a cell that has a specific function. Individual organelles are separated from the cytosol and enclosed within their own lipid bilayers. Let's write out the definition for an organelle before we start. Organelle equals a subunit of a cell. Actually, it's an important thing about an organelle is that it is a membrane-bound subunit of a cell. So let's actually add that. That is pretty important. An organelle is a membrane-bound subunit of a cell. The name organelle comes from the idea that these structures are to cells what an organ is to the body. I have a heart, lungs, and a stomach. Those are my organs. A cell has organs of its own that we call organelles. We have already talked about the nucleus. So there's the nucleus, the DNA inside of the nucleus. The nucleus contains most of the cell's genetic material. It's organized as long, multiple linear DNA molecules. The nucleus is the control center of the cell. It has a double membrane called a nuclear envelope. And so actually, let's draw this double membrane that we have. Now, before we go any further, we should probably talk about what a lipid bilayer is, since every organelle has a lipid bilayer. So, I'm going to zoom in on this area right here. And this is what the structure of a lipid bilayer looks like. Alright, these circles that I drew, those are the hydrophilic ends. And these little lines that come off of the circle, these are hydrophobic fatty acids. So every time we talk about a lipid bilayer, that's what we're talking about. The nucleus has two lipid bilayers. Alright, the endoplasmic reticulum is the next thing we're going to talk about. And actually, before we talk about that though, let's label some stuff. This is the cellular membrane. In here we have the cytosol. Oh, you have the DNA we didn't label either. Alright, so what I just drew there is the endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum is actually a continuation of the outer lipid bilayer of the nucleus, but it's considered its own organelle. There are some ribosomes attached to some parts of the endoplasmic reticulum. So these little green dots, we're going to call those ribosomes. Alright, so the parts of the endoplasmic reticulum that have the ribosomes attached to them, the ribosomes literally make the endoplasmic reticulum rough. So this part is called the rough endoplasmic reticulum, or the rough ER. Or the part of the endoplasmic reticulum without the ribosomes is called the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, or the smooth ER. And we have Golgi bodies are another type of organelle. So this right here, this is going to be a Golgi body. Golgi bodies function in the sorting, packaging, processing, and modification of proteins. Also in the cell we have these are little vesicles. Can be throughout the cell. And vesicles are another type of organelle. They are very small organelles, consisting of fluid which is enclosed by a lipid bilayer. Vesicles form naturally, and they transport materials within the cytoplasm as well as transport materials into and out of the cells. Also, you can have these, they're like large vesicles. Large vesicles, or it could be a bunch of little vesicles fused together. We call these vacuoles. So let's label these. This big one is called a vacuole. And the smaller ones, vesicles. Now, there are some organelles that actually contain their own DNA, which is separate from the nuclear DNA that we have talked about. For example, the mitochondria is one of these. The mitochondria looks kind of like this. It's got the mitochondria is present in most eukaryotes. These structures are sometimes described as the powerhouse of the cell because they generate most of the cell's supply of ATP. ATP is used as a source of cellular energy. In addition to supplying cellular energy, mitochondria are involved in other tasks such as signaling, cellular differentiation, cell death, as well as maintaining the control of the cell cycle and the cell growth cycle. Like the nucleus, the mitochondria has both an inner and an outer membrane. So now we got to label this one mitochondria. In plants, there are plastids. Like the mitochondria, plastids have their own DNA. The most famous type of plastid is the chloroplast. And so that is what I'm going to draw. So we have these chloroplasts. Chloroplasts actually have 3 membranes. And we're going to talk about these membranes in a later video. There are other types of plastids, such as an amyloplast, an orleoplast, and a proteinoplast. The chloroplast, which is the one I draw, its main job is photosynthesis, where the photosynthetic pigment chlorophyll captures the energy from sunlight and stores it as chemical energy in the form of ATP. Now remember, the chloroplast is just one type of a variety of types of plastids. And plastids and mitochondria are fascinating because they have the ability to replicate themselves without the help of the rest of the cell. It is believed that they were once independent prokaryotes that at some point fused with eukaryotic cells. They got absorbed by the larger cells and they began to work together in symbiosis. Now, there are other minor organelles within the cell, but the main point here is that organelles are viewed as membrane-bound structures within a cell. So by this definition, things like ribosomes are not organelles, but the nucleus, the mitochondria, the vacuoles, and other things, they are.